And online, I'm just sitting there just clicking the computer, not getting enough physical activity.
Where do you normally work?
Here, on my floor in my egg chair. I'm a JK and I didn't get to see my kids in kindergarten.
What some Ontario parents and kids were worried about indeed became official this week. Students will not be heading back to the classroom this month. Some 2 million students in the province have now been learning from home or trying to learn from home for more than 4 months. Compare that to neighboring Quebec, which had just 8 weeks of closures for some. And here in British Columbia, only a few dozen schools closed at all, and even then, it was just for a couple of weeks. Ontario has been in this position of closed schools the longest in Canada. And whether they agree with it or not, parents, teachers, and students alike are feeling the weight of it. So joining us now are two people caught in the middle. Jay Williams is a middle school teacher in Toronto, and Lindsay Soberano-Wilson is a high school teacher and a parent, and she joins us from Vaughan, just north of Toronto. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jay, how did you and your class react to the news that you will not be returning to the classroom until the end of the school year?
Well, I mean, Ian, to be honest with you, it was a response that we knew was coming. I would say about 75% of my students were realistically happy that we weren't going back. I know there's a lot of talk about mental health and the protection of mental health of students, but what my students particularly said is that going back to school would be more damaging than anything else, realistically.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so yeah, nobody's going back to school until the beginning of the next school year. Lindsay, as a teacher, as a parent, what was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some disappointment around here because I teach grade 9. They were kind of excited about the potential to return and definitely disappointed. I mean, from their point of view, you know, they could have made a few more friendships before summer. And then my own children were definitely disappointed because I have 3 young boys, JK, grade 1 and grade 5, who are very social and active, and it's been very hard for them. And they were excited about going back. So they were disappointed, yes.
There are a lot of people who are watching who have not been in this position of having kids at home trying to learn online during the pandemic. So we asked some parents to show us what it's like just kind of, put the camera around their living rooms or wherever else, and also to hear what it's like. I'm going to play you a piece of tape now.
This is what my workday looks like.
So this is our setup for online learning. It's me sitting here, my youngest sitting here, so I can help her with grade 1. We had good intentions of my older 2 taking up spots here too, but we quickly learned that that was too loud with 3 Teams meetings plus any calls I had going on.
My kids are in grade 5, grade 2 and kindergarten. So there is a lot of overlap between the teachers talking and their classmates answering questions. The noises can really get to me and it can get very annoying.
It is extremely difficult to work from home and also help your child who is doing distance learning. It is very labor intensive for the parents. It is not as engaging for the children as being in class, and many of us are finding that our children are struggling.
What are you looking at on your phone?
No, TikTok.
But isn't class going on?
No.
So, Lindsay, you can't see the video from where you are in Vaughan, but you're living it because you have, I mean, it makes me stressful even to see those parents, they're trying to work on the computer, their kids are doing something on the computer. What's it been like for you?
Yes, no, I mean, it's been very hectic. I'd say for the most part, our setup would be me in the kitchen and my son and JK also in the kitchen. Then we'd have my son in grade 1 in the family room, and of course my grade 5 son upstairs in his own room. But yes, it's been very challenging because, you know what, not only do they have to engage with their own class, but they have to not distract each other in their other classes, right? And then, of course, me trying to oversee my own class. I think I do have to admit that, you know, the best thing that came out of it all was realizing how understanding my own students were. And I think, you know, the more fair I have been with them the more fair they've been with me, right? And so I think that was one kind of interesting thing that came out of it all, of how understanding my own students have been.
I love how people find silver linings in the clouds of this pandemic. Jay, I hear a lot about burnout for students, for sure, doing all of this online learning at home, and for teachers as well. What's your view on that?
Burnout is very real. I think my students have experienced it in a way that I understand, because we as teachers are also experiencing burnout. As we know, engagement is down across the board. Cameras are off. Students using microphones is happening even less than it was in the beginning. And students just express a way of wanting to find a means to have fun again, not be on their laptop for 6 hours a day. So, and I get that. That's realistic.
And Jay, how do you manage to keep kids engaged, or what do you do to try to keep them engaged?
Well, realistically, at this point, too, now, I've dropped all things that I think I've had in plans for my regular quote-unquote year, and we're only focusing on what's relevant, what's in the media, what's hot, if you will, what really interests them. So giving students that autonomy again to feel as though what we're doing is of relevance and of interest to them. That realistically is the only way I'm going to get them to be there consistently, day in and day out, and to complete assignments at this point.
Lindsay, you can answer this question as a teacher or as a parent or maybe as both. I hear a lot of people talking about this potentially being a lost year for kids in school this year. What's your view of that?
Yeah, I believe it really depends on the individual. I believe that maybe some students have definitely fallen behind, unfortunately, and I think there are many who have just hung on. But what we do know for sure is that there are none that are thriving and have excelled. So we really do have to look for, filling in those gaps of learning and getting more support when we do return to the classroom.
And Jay, we have about 30 seconds. I know you don't feel that this is a lost year necessarily, but I guess the gaps we always see in school maybe got a little wider this year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Gaps definitely were widened, and we know exactly who we're talking about when we're talking about those gaps. We're talking about our Black and brown children across the board. We're talking about our boys when it comes to math and to reading comprehension. So Lindsay nailed it on the head. What are we going to do as a staff, as teachers, as boards, when we get back to the classroom, to the school, to ensure that the right resources are in place to rectify those problems?
Well, it was only a short conversation, but I got to say, I don't detect any burnout from either one of you. You seem like engaged educators, and then let's hope for a better school year in the fall. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.